From your local election headquarters, this is a special presentation of News 8.
Welcome back to this town hall event at News 8 with Monroe County Executive candidate Adam Bello. Our first question comes from Chris Gullo from the Villa of Hope. Chris.
Hi, Adam.
Hi, Chris.
My question for you, which is very near and dear to my heart because it impacts the kids and families of our community, is with the cuts with the Department of Human Services that have happened, as well as the vacancy retention issues and therefore high caseloads. How would you address some of those issues that are happening in our community?
Chris, thank you for that question. And this is a very important issue facing our community in terms of staffing, particular resources that go into help programs that protect children and family services in our community. The first thing that I think we need to do is take a step back and look at how our departments are funded and how we're hiring staff and how we're treating our staff and what resources we're putting into services. You know, recently I know the county a few years ago came out with an 8-point plan on how it was going to fund and add staff to the Child Protective Service program. And they had an 8-point plan to add staff and add resources, but at the end of the day, we still have far too many vacancies that exist. The full 8-point plans have not been fulfilled. And the caseload sizes are far above what the state recommends. And so I think first thing we need to do is do what we said we were going to do, which is to adequately fund the program so that we can pay our staff what they're worth and pay at a rate that allows us to retain staff, because these are hard jobs. Working in this county, these are the hardest men and women that I know, and working men and women that I know, and what they're doing is impacting directly our community. So we need to pay them a rate that allows them to stay. We need to invest in them, and then we need to have an aggressive effort to recruit and add so we can retain people to those programs. You know, we even went back and looked. You know, the pay scales really have not dramatically changed over the last several years in how we're doing this, and instead we have a lot of political announcements about plans to hire people and staff up, but at the end of the day, we don't really make the impact that we say we're going to make. And I feel the same way when it comes to other issues with children and family services like early intervention services that are programs that are directly to serve young people in our community who need that extra help, whether it's occupational therapy, speech therapy, physical therapy, so that by the time they reach school age, they have services available to them so that they don't face further delays by the time that they're in school. And I think that we're just missing the mark. Just last month at a county legislature meeting, there were dozens and dozens of parents coming to the Monroe County Legislature begging for help because there's children in our community who are on waiting lists, waiting for services. And I'll tell you, my own son, before he reached kindergarten age, was the recipient of early intervention preschool services. He was the recipient of speech therapy. And we were lucky because we didn't have to wait on a waiting list at that time. He received the services that he needed when and he needed them, so that by the time he reached kindergarten, he was able to communicate with his peers, communicate with his family and with his teachers, and was able to be successful. But I can't imagine now what it looks like for these families who are looking at their children on waiting lists, who have been waiting for these services and falling behind. And now they're at night laying in bed thinking, where would my child be? How better off would they be if they received those services immediately when they needed them? And that's why this is so important. And so what we need to do is raise the reimbursement rates so that we can pay providers what they need to be successful and be able to provide that service to preschool and early intervention services. We need to increase that rate so that they can stay in the field. But then we also have to hire additional service coordinators in the county so that the caseload size are manageable and services that children need aren't falling through the cracks. Our kids deserve to be treated fairly by its county government, and we need to get them the services before they hit school age, because all it's going to do is get them further and further delayed. When kids are at that age from 0 to 5, before they're hitting kindergarten, that's when they're experiencing the most growth. That's when they're having the most cognitive growth, and they're able to thrive if they get the services that they need.
Of course, this then gets to the big bugaboo of being county executive, which is what, 85% of the funds are mandated by the state, leaving not that much discretionary
money lying around. So how do you go about doing that? How do you raise the rates? How do you pay more? How do you hire more?
So it's all about setting priorities. You know, I know we complain a lot about our state mandates and the 85%, but what's mandated, 85% of the services you provide are mandated, but how you provide those services are where you have a lot of discretion, and that's what leadership is all about. I'll give you a good example. I'm the county clerk, and as the county clerk, I'm mandated to exist. 100% of my budget is state mandated because we're required to have me. But what's not mandated is how I provide that service as effectively as possible. It's not mandated to have opened a DMV in the city of Rochester this year for the first time in probably, I think, 10 or 13 years. That wasn't a mandate, but it's not a mandate to partner with the county sheriff to help provide IDs for people in that type of service. So it's how you provide the service that you have the option for, and that's what leadership is all about. It's not about complaining about the mandate or the job that you're required to do because you're a county government. That's what counties are set up to do. We're set up to provide social service programs. Our existence is to provide these early intervention programs. We're supposed to be providing child protective services, but how you provide those services is what we have the flexibility to do, and I think that's what leadership is all about.
And we're going to stick with kids right now with our next questioner. We have with us LaVon Richards from the Center for Youth. Hi, LaVon.
Doing today.
Hi, LaVon.
Question. What can we expect from you as we face and continue the challenge for young people at risk, especially youth of color, for those facing homelessness?
Mm-hmm. So that's a good question. And I think what we need to do is to completely rethink the way that we provide services in this community through our social service programs. Right now, in my view, our social service programs are designed to keep people out instead of bring people in and help lift them up. They need to be connected and integrated in a way. So when a young person touches the system, whether it's through housing program, a food program, an educational program, wherever they're touching the system, that the programs are designed in a way and integrated so that we get them all the different benefits they need in a case management system to help lift people up. I think that's how you do it. We can't operate in silos, and I think that's a problem that this community has had in a number of different ways, and it touches a lot of different challenges that we face, whether it's the opioid crisis, economic development, or how we deal with services for children facing homelessness. It's that there's not one magic bullet, there's not one program that's going to solve it, but what we need to do is the county has to leverage all the different resources that we have against what's available in the nonprofit community and work together. We have to start connecting the pieces, and that's something that we don't do enough. I meet with nonprofit organizations all the time who are doing fantastic work in this community, who are helping people, trying to lift people up out of poverty and give opportunities to everybody. But what they tell me time and time again is that we're not connected, we're not working together, we're all working in silos, and if we all spend our money and resources working in silos instead of bringing it together, we're never going to have that impact that we're hoping to have.
All right, Adam, thank you.
Yep.
Talking about young people, we have one with us now. Rainey Walker, thank you for joining us.
Hello, Mr. Bello. I'm Rainey Walker, a student at School of the Arts. My question is about schools in Monroe County, specifically the creation of a countywide school district. Monroe County is one of the most segregated in the state, with some of the best performing districts next to one of the poorest performing, the Rochester City School District. Studies show integrating students of different backgrounds and ethnicities create benefits for all students, and breaking up schools with concentrated poverty vastly improves student performance. On path to end segregation in our school districts would be to create a countywide school district. Where do you, Mr. Bello, fall in the debate over creating a countywide school district?
Thank you, Randy. And I think that the way the county, I think, can impact the challenges facing the city school district is to step back and find out what are the barriers that are in place to our children being able to succeed. I don't think a countywide school district is the answer right now, but I think what we need to do is look at the model that is starting to grow in some of these schools that's successful, and it's the community schools model, where we look at our schools more as community places where services are available to families in the community. If you look at the barriers that children are facing when it comes to being successful, there's no question that the intense concentration of poverty in certain areas of our particularly in the city of Rochester, are standing in the way of student success. And what the county does is a large part of our charge, probably half our budget, is social service programs. It's supposed to be designed to work with families in our community who are facing poverty and figure out how do we put that connection together to help give the opportunity to lift up. And so what I would do as county executive is partner with the mayor of the city of Rochester. I'd partner with the school district in the city, and we would be in the schools. We have to be where families are. We can't expect children and families to be coming to us. We need to be in the schools, partnering with the teachers, partnering with the school districts to figure out how do we get help to these children. You know, I'll give you a great example. So I was in a high school a few months ago, and we were looking at a performance chart the principal was showing me, and he was able to point out to me a student, it was about a C student, who had an 80% attendance rate, which means that 1 out of every 5 school days this student was absent. And he said to me, Adam, this is a student I guarantee if we can get him into school 90%, 95% of the time, this is a B student, this is an A student who's going to wildly succeed out here, but they're probably at home because they're watching a younger sibling while their parents go to work. He goes, I can almost guarantee you that's the problem. So what we need to do is we need to be in that school so we can find that child, find that child's parents, and find out why aren't they in that school the other 20% of the time? Where are they that other 1/5 of the school days? And then what programs do we have available, whether it's child daycare programs, is it whatever it is, that we can put together so that child can be in school and succeed. And I think we need to be in the schools using the community school model to have that success.
Before we go to our next questioner, I have one of my own. Before Cheryl D'Onofrio, there was Maggie Brooks. And the banner that she always held high every year was that she did not increase the tax rate in Monroe County. And so the question has now become, for any candidate, under your administration, would the tax rate go up?
Well, here's what I would do when it comes to taxes. I was a big supporter of the property tax cap that the state of New York passed. And when I was a supervisor in the town of Irondequoit, I'm proud of my record there. We held the line on the property tax rate. I did not increase the tax rate. And the property tax levy grew by about 1% while I was there over 2 years. I would contrast that with Monroe County now, where they talk about a property tax rate cut, when the reality is that last year alone they had the largest property tax increase in 10 years, and the property taxes levy, which is the amount of dollars you actually pay, has gone up over 7% in the last 3 years under this administration. And so what I would do is I would go back to how, using my experience in Irondequoit, is that we have to keep the property tax increase, levy increase underneath the New York State property tax cap.
All right.
And we should be honest about it. That's I think is important, is that we should be honest about what we're doing with taxes. We can't be telling people we're cutting their taxes when they're really facing some pretty large, significant tax increases.
So if they go up, you'll say you'll
I'm going to tell you the truth about it. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
Our next question is actually going to come from an online viewer. This is from Twitter from, his name is Ken Girardin. Ken, I hope I pronounced your name properly here. Ken is asking this: which unfunded mandate would you attempt to cut first once you become county executive? You obviously have to drive all the way to Albany to try and make that happen, but what do you try to go after first?
What's an unfunded mandate that we would go after? Well, I would put it more this way. I think that, I want to answer the question like this, is that I think that one thing our community does not do is lobby well in Albany for the resources we need to do our job. I think that's the problem. You know, right now we're all operating in silos. The county administration has its priorities, and it's largely used as a like I said, through the view of a political message. And actually, I'll use early intervention services as a perfect example of this, where, you know, Monroe County faced a crisis. There's children on waiting lists. I think earlier this year there was a report. There was hundreds of children waiting for these services. We were at a crisis point. There weren't enough providers. So instead of putting together what I viewed as a real coalition to go to Albany, this is a coalition of lawmakers, the county executive, parents, providers, advocates. Instead of putting together a real coalition, going to Albany, advocating for public hearings with our legislature, and really raising this as a priority for Monroe County, instead, we heard a lot of complaining, we heard a lot of blaming. The county did increase its reimbursement rate by 15%, but it was only on part of it, and they said it was across the board. Turns out initially it wasn't across the board because it was all being run on a political message of how do I get through the day, how do I stop people from coming to legislature meetings and complaining about this and advocating about this. It wasn't really geared towards solving the problem, in my view. So I think the problem with that is that we just don't problem solve. We don't build these coalitions in an effective way to go to Albany to advocate for the resources that we need to fund the mandates.
All right, our next questioner is Devin Chase. Devin is a student at Nazareth College right now. Hi, Devin.
Hi, thank you for coming out and doing this first and foremost. It's great for our democratic process. But my question to you is, how would you fight the rising income inequality in Monroe County?
Devin, thank you for that. I mean, I think it's a couple of things. And again, I go back to what we have to do is make sure a couple of things. First of all, government's supposed to work for everybody, regardless of who you are, who you know, and what zip code you live in. And I think that, you know, so we need to start from that premise. It's the philosophy I've had from the beginning of government. I think what we have to do is stop, again, with the political messages about how many jobs we're creating and how many people we're working, and start to look at the fact that we have pockets of real intense concentrations of poverty. We have people who are underemployed, unemployed, too many people living in this community, while at the same time we have thousands and thousands of jobs available today that are just going unfilled. And I think what we're missing is that piece of leadership. We're missing whatever that spark that helps to link those people who need those workforce development programs linked with child daycare dollars and do that in a scaled up way that helps get them into those jobs, right? And I'm talking about workforce development programs too that have a job at the end of the day associated with them. We could train people all we want all day long, but unless there's a job at the end of the program, we're really not helping anybody and we're not building the economy. So I think that we have to attack it from different ways. We could talk about the economy of the future. We could talk about the different types of high-tech jobs that we want to bring here and also talk about all the talent at the universities. But at the same time, there was a study done that showed about 10,000 middle-skilled jobs are available in our region today. We're just not putting together the pieces of those workforce development programs with those jobs on a scale to match the problem.
All right, I'm going to take one more question before we get to our next questioner.
Sure.
Do you still oppose the law that was passed here in New York, or at least all of it, that will allow some undocumented immigrants to get a driver's license?
Yeah, I mean, I went to, you know, I had a lot of concerns about this law when it was passed, and I went to Albany to share those concerns when it was passed. But what I'll say is, but my job is the county clerk, and the law is the law of the land, and so we're going to follow the law. My expectation is that when the law takes effect in December, we will follow it.
You have the current county executive, though, saying that this is in breach of federal law, and she's suing. Yeah. Would you join that lawsuit? Would you forward that lawsuit if you were to win?
Yeah, no, here's the problem I have with the lawsuit is that this is you know, we live in a county that doesn't have enough resources to fully invest in early intervention services, to give our children the services they need. We don't have enough resources to make a real impact in child protective services. We don't have enough resources to have a real effort to build this economy. We don't have enough resources to even give the health care benefits that were promised to the sheriff retiree, the men and women who serve this community and put their lives on the line for this community, don't have the health care benefits that they were promised. But somehow we have enough resources to file a lawsuit against a law that has lawsuits filed all across New York State on a law that's already in existence in about a dozen other states across the country. I think that we should focus our resources here at home, helping people in our community and trying to impact the challenges that are directly facing the families in our community.
Our next questioner is Ronika Burns from 1099 SEIU.
Hi. Hi, so thank you for this opportunity. My question is about a system that I feel has failed in our community, which is the library system. Can you tell me what is your plan to better serve the community with the libraries?
That is a really great question, and I'm glad you asked that because I'm a big proponent of libraries. When I was a supervisor of the town of Irondequoit, I had the opportunity to work with the community, and I mean work with the community. We brought everybody to the table, the business community, the library board of trustees, the Friends of the Library group, the librarians, residents. We brought everybody together and had the opportunity to start from scratch by building a new library. And we had a lot of questions about whether or not that was a wise investment. To build a big structure, people said, well, if you're going to build a big structure that's just a repository for books, that's a waste of resources. And I said, no. What libraries are becoming in the future, you have to think about them as community centers. You have to think about them as places for innovation and creativity and entrepreneurship. And how are we going to harness that natural creative spirit that our children have and our community have to help them grow? I mean, look, I look at it this way. Our community faces our community's changing very quickly, right? The economy's changing. My 8-year-old and 10-year-old are training right now, and they're in school right now learning for jobs that don't even exist yet. We couldn't even tell you what they are. And so our job as parents and as a community is to tap into that creative spirit that they have so that they are prepared and they have that innovative spirit so when they grow up, they can be prepared to take whatever job and whatever we're doing in the future. And I think that's the role libraries can play. So when we're building our libraries and we're building the computer banks, but you're looking at iPads, you're looking at makers labs, creative labs, you're looking at 3D printers. We put a 3D printer in our library. We created spaces that were designed for small children, for preteens, for older adults. Made it programmatic space so that it can grow and change with the meeting chimes. So to meet the changing times. So I think that, you know, as a county executive, I will be a strong proponent of libraries because I think they're more than just where we store books. I think they're places that we can help tap into the creative nature of our children and help better prepare them for the future that we don't know what it will be.
All right, 30 seconds on this last question. One of the ways the county has balanced the budget in the past is to sell off county resources, county land. Does that happen under the Bello administration?
No, we have to take a long, honest look at this. That's not a sustainable model. One of the things I said first thing we're going to do when I'm there is a top-to-bottom forensic audit of the county finances to really make sure we have a handle because we get too many mixed messages out of this county. There's budget surpluses, but there's not enough money to do these things. It's it's too many mixed messages. We're using too many one-shot revenues. So we'll do a top-to-bottom forensic audit because that's not a way to do it. That's not how I balanced our budgets in the town of Irondequoit, and that would not be how I'd like to balance the budget for Monroe County.
At this time, we'd like to give Adam Bello 1 minute for a closing statement.
Cool. Thank you, Adam. And I want to thank all of you at home, and particularly WROC and Channel 8 for hosting this forum today and giving me an opportunity to talk directly to you. You know, this campaign is really about the future of Monroe County. I think our community has been largely stuck on a political message for far too long. We face a number of challenges, from economic development opportunities to our young people, from the opioid crisis, which we didn't have a chance really to talk about tonight, to services to our children, early intervention services, child protective services. And in order to solve these problems, we have to move past political messages and actually start to grow, bring people together. There's so many great people doing work in our community. The problem is we're working in silos. And so what we want to do is bring people together so we can start moving the needle. There is no reason why Monroe County should have a population that's flat, a job market that's flat, a GDP growth that is flat. We were once leaders in the world in creativity and innovation and entrepreneurship. We are the home of Eastman Kodak. We can be that again if we have leaders that believe that politics should be in the past and that we have our greatest days are ahead of us, but we have to be able to work together and start to really move the needle.
Adam Bello, thank you, and thank you for
Adam.
watching. We hope to see you right here at News 8 on Election Day. Have a good night.